Hey everyone, hope you had a great weekend and thanks again for joining me here on Political Peaks. Today on the show we meet two more candidates for City Council. And a quick reminder to those of you who haven't seen the previous interviews with Daniel Lewis, Chadwick Fairbanks, and Nan Worrell, you can head to parkcity.tv right now and check them out. Next up, we hear from Deanna Rhodes and Becca Gerber. Rhodes has called Park City home for 4 years and has worked extensively with the Park City Community Foundation, and more recently was appointed to the Park City Police Complaint Review Committee. Gerber has been a lifetime resident of Park City and currently sits on City Council. She's also been the Director of Sales and Marketing for Aloha Ski and Snowboard for 6 years. Let's hear from them both now.
What I love about living in Park City is the fact that you don't have to wait for anyone to give you permission to get involved. It's almost expected. As soon as I moved here, I started doing things like doing a ride along with the police department. I show up to meetings. I go to 75% of the Board of Health meetings. I just think it's really important to get involved, and the community supports that. You don't have to wait for anyone to ask you or give you permission to do that. The most important policy goals over the next 4 years really begin with having a really clear strategic plan that the entire community is bought into. We're gonna have to ask ourselves a really hard question. Who do we want to be as Park City? And so having a strategic plan, then all of our other initiatives are going to really be supporting that. Secondly, I think that we really need to be looking at this from a regional perspective, whether it's tackling our transit challenges or affordable housing. Our community doesn't actually end at the White Barn, so we really need to take a regional approach to that. So I think those are the two most important policy directions that we'll be embarking over the next 4 years, and of course doing all that in a really fiscally responsible way. Park City is so fortunate that we have a really large budget, but it's not infinite. So we have to be really smart about how we take this approach. As a working professional in Park City, I know that it's a struggle to stay here due to the affordability, and it's a really important issue that really hits home for me. I've actually lived in a few different communities where we've addressed affordable housing, and I've actually lived in affordable housing from a rental standpoint, and I've lived in affordable housing from a home ownership standpoint. And I think that bringing that perspective to the table is going to be really valuable as we move forward, because it's a continuum. We don't just have one solution that's going to fix all of our problems. We really have to look at all different perspectives of housing and how we address that. And I think that's probably the #1 issue that we face when it comes to really including our entire community, whether it's the working class or minorities. And also a group that often gets forgotten about is our senior population. You shouldn't have to move to Salt Lake when you're ready to retire or you need services.
To learn more about Deanna's campaign or to reach out with any questions, you can head to Deanna Rhodes for Park City Council on Facebook.
I grew up here in Park City. This has been my home since I was a child, and I've seen it change a lot over the years. And it's now the place where I'm choosing to raise my family. I have a 1-year-old son, and my husband works here. He owns a small business here in Park City as well, and we really love all that makes this place so special, from the community and the people to the space, the trails, to our downtown area and our historic preservation. It's just a beautiful place for us to raise our family, and it really fits with so many of the values and ideals that we hold dear in our hearts. We have to continue to talk about housing. It's so important. It really speaks to who we are as a community. It also speaks a lot to affordability for our residents. And I do think that we are going to be continuing to seek a balance between our tourist economy and the quality of life for our residents. Transportation is always going to be big, and I think we have to continue to address climate change and the impact that that will have on our year-round economy. Yeah, so we really have to keep talking about housing, and I think a big opportunity for our workforce will be rental housing, and I look forward to starting to implement some of that in the community. But talking about housing, where it belongs, who it's for, and the impacts that that will have on our community into the future is going to be a really big deal for us. And we could not survive in this community without our workforce. We have so many jobs, and the impact that that is having on our transit and our transportation as all of those workers commute into town every day is really causing quite a bit of congestion and issues for us. So it really is something that we're going to have to work on, and it also speaks to who we are as a community, who we want to be, and the diversity of our population is so important.
If you want to reach out to Becca or learn more about her campaign, you can head to becca4parkcity.com or search Becca for Park City on Facebook. Now for some pretty interesting news out of the Salt Lake Valley. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris was supposed to make a campaign stop in Salt Lake City next week on July 17th, but it turns out it was all just a hoax. Members of the Harris campaign noticed a fundraising event that was being advertised in Salt Lake City that was charging $200 a plate to attend, and immediately a red flag went right up. The event was scheduled to happen at The Wave, a co-working space for women in downtown Salt Lake City, and it turns out they were just as surprised as the Harris camp to find out that the whole thing was a hoax. The man responsible? A Mr. Adrian Hebden of Taylorsville, who was arrested in Wyoming earlier this week. Let's hope this doesn't keep the Harris campaign from making a stop here in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's webisode of Political Peaks. Next week, we meet our last two candidates for City Council, so be sure and keep it tuned to parkcity.tv so you don't miss out. As always, follow us on all of our social media at Park City TV. We'll have new episodes of Peak Bites and Political Peaks dropping next week, so until then, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.